So Savannah Chrisley, Todd and Julie Chrisley's daughter, is weighing in and wondering why exactly did Jen Shah get only 6.5 years versus her father's 12 years and her mother's 7 years in prison. As you know, Todd and Julie Chrisley have reported to prison this past Tuesday. Welcome back to the Kempire Daily YouTube channel, your number one source for pop culture news and music, entertainment, reality TV, and so much more. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. So I saw this story in regards to Todd and Julie Chrisley reporting to prison this past Tuesday. As you know, we did a separate video talking about them being denied bail while they seek an appeal in their fraud case. So I also saw recently that Savannah Chrisley, who has a podcast, has been talking about how the system is broken, how the system failed her parents. And she talks more about this in the latest episode of her podcast. And because she has a podcast and because, I like to do my due diligence, I listened to the podcast. Look, there are some people that do podcasts that have the voice. You know how some people, they say you have a face for radio? Well, not everyone has a voice for a podcast because it's a listening platform. And honestly, Savannah, I get it. You have to make money now. She is now the matriarch of the whole situation. She has to make money. And one of the ways they canceled both their reality shows. So now she has this podcast. But honestly, as soon as it started, I was like, why is she so loud? And that's the thing. I loved Chrisley Knows Best. I loved the entire family. I loved the entertainment, even the pre-produced moments. But when you just have to listen to someone, it's a very different experience. No shade, but shade. But I wanted to hear her thoughts on this whole Jen Shah situation because a lot of you have agreed, like, why is Jen Shah getting only 6.5 years when there are actual victims? But if you watched my last video talking about Savannah Chrisley and Todd and Julie Chrisley, I told you there are victims. Those victims include you, me, and anyone that's trying to get a loan at a bank. And thankfully, we have such a vast audience of people that have experiences in different things, including working at banks. And one person commented this in the comment section of that video. So Michelle commented under that video that we did a few days ago, saying this: as a prior licensed banker for many years, you are absolutely correct, in capital letters, saying that people who do this crap make it very difficult for people to borrow money from financial institutions. And that has a ripple effect. We already know that certain people of color they already have a struggle of getting these types of opportunities and loans in these financial institutions. So the general audience also is affected by this. So I know we don't have a face of victims or victim statements. They talk about this in the latest episode of Savannah's podcast. They're like, well, there are no victims here, but there are. You may be a little blinded to the situation, but there are victims. Your parents have been convicted of defrauding the government and wire fraud, I believe they were also charged with. So I'm not even saying alleged here because they have been convicted. Yes, they are also appealing this and they have maintained their innocence. However, one of the things that I said in regards to the situation, because there have been a lot of people, not just Savannah Chrisley, comparing the Jen Shah situation to the Todd and Julie situation, I said that, well, we have to also keep in mind Jen Shah at the last hour admitted and took a plea deal. She literally took a plea deal so that she wouldn't end up like Todd and Julie Chrisley, where she would face multiple years in prison. She could have been in prison a lot longer. She was facing like 50 years in prison. But she took a plea deal because she's like, well, 12 years is better than 50. Well, not 12 years. 6.5 years is better than 50 years or 12 years. So take a listen to what Savannah Chrisley had to say in regards to this, because she got the battery in her back because of what she was seeing people say on social media about this.
Things that just don't add up, and you know, Jen Shah had someone, there's actually, I want to say, there was, you know, that Instagram, not skinny, not fat?
I don't.
Oh my gosh, Mom. Okay, so not skinny, not fat. Anyone that knows that Instagram, Claudia, I forgot what her last name is, that runs that Instagram, but she posted the other day and said, it was a picture of herself on her Instagram story. I'll never understand the law. How did Todd Chrisley get 12 years in prison and Jen Shah gets 6.5? Like, please explain. Asking genuinely. Now, put the cases side by side, and it makes no sense.
Right.
It just doesn't.
Right.
You have someone who has
Victims
who
have provided victim statements who were over the age of 55.
This is my thing. You have one case, Jen Shah, who has admitted to guilt, who said that she would not appeal her conviction if she got less than 12 years. There were hundreds of victims who were elderly, and that people that provided statements that lost their homes, threatened to end their lives, that there were so many different things. And she got 6.5 years. 6.5 years. Make that make sense. Make that make sense.
Yep.
Because then on the other side, you have someone who has not admitted to guilt and who will stand firm in that. And people can say whatever they want to say. In a way, that hurt us because they wanted us to say, oh, we're guilty, this, that, and the other. We never did that because that's not the truth.
Right.
So we're standing by our truth that it is not guilty. There are no victims.
Right.
There are no victims.
There were no victim statements. There were no victim statements read. There were no victim statements received to our knowledge.
Exactly. And so it just, none of it adds up. And to me, it's just, there's more to it.
So like I said, I honestly believe that there are victims here. Yes, these victims don't necessarily have a name or a face, but it's these types of crimes that make it harder for our system to give loans to people that are actually not defrauding the system. As I said to you before, Todd and Julie Chrisley have denied these allegations. They even tried to seek bail while they appealed the situation, but they have now reported to their prospective prisons. Even Julie Chrisley, she was supposed to report to a prison in Florida, but ended up reporting to a medical facility. They're talking about maybe she's having some sort of health issue. Todd Chrisley says that there is no cancer or any sort of issue like that. So we don't know exactly why she reported to this specific facility. But as you also know, and we've been talking about this, I rely on legal commentators to verify a lot of the information that we see in these media reports. So our friends over at Emily D. Baker, she broke down in a short explaining to us why exactly Jen Shah received 6.5 years versus Todd and Julie facing nearly 20 years in prison.
Todd and Julie Chrisley surrendered to federal prison today, and Savannah wondered on her podcast why the difference in sentencing between the Chrisleys and Jen Shah. Let's take a look at it. At the indictment stage, Jen Shah was indicted for 2 counts, where the Chrisleys as to Todd for 9 and Julie Chrisley for 10, including that obstruction of justice charge, which makes government attorneys super cranky. Though Jen Shah's fraud was long-ranging, it was not broken down into a lot of different types of counts. When Jen Shah pled, her crime level was fixed at 33 and her range was fixed at 135 to 168 months. After trial, the Chrisleys' crime level and ranges were different. Todd Chrisley's was at 37 with a range of 210 to 263 months. Julie's crime level was at 33 with a range of 121 to 151. So when all those factors are weighed, we get this difference in sentences because of those things.
So there are elements, look, based off of what we saw in front of us, I just assume because Jen Shah pled guilty versus Todd and Julie taking the risk and fighting this case, layman's just thought that's the reason why she faced more time. But as you saw, Emily broke it down. Well, this is what exactly happened in this particular situation. As you know, Emily D. Baker was a prosecutor for many years, and she's a legal commentator who follows and discusses these cases on her channel. Per usual, we'll be citing our sources in the description of this video. Guys, I want to know your reaction. Have you been listening to Savannah Chrisley's podcast? Because her mother has been on there quite a few. This last episode, her mom was on there. They're talking about Chloe, raising Chloe as a black child and how she faces racism. There were a few things that they talked about in this episode. A few things that made me cringe and a few things that I felt that I needed to bring here. Let's continue this conversation in the comments section. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. Thanks for watching.